And welcome to the Action Network Fantasy Flex podcast. This is our week 6 player prop edition. We'll also talk about Sunday Night Football, the showdown slate. I'm your host, Chris Raybon, joined as always by my dude, Sean Koerner. Sean, how's it going?
What's up? I think we did pretty good last week, right? I went 4-1, I believe. Did you see how you?
I think I went 2-3, so I think you're carrying us. Devontae Smith went over his reception total, so that
you're obviously due. So I'm doing a 4 to 5 flex play with all your props this week. You're absolutely due.
Yeah, I mean, I did call Robert Woods on that last Thursday slate. So
yeah,
that was good.
That was huge.
But let's talk about the. We'll start off this one. We'll talk about the Sunday showdown slate, the Sunday Night Football, and then we'll get into our top 10 props. So let's get into the Steelers and Seahawks Sunday Night Football matchup. Sean, when you're thinking about the captain spot here, who are you looking at? Of course, Seattle, seems like some of their top options are a little less intriguing with Geno Smith at the helm. So are you going with Steelers here, or are you going a little more contrarian?
It begins and ends with Chase Claypool for me. I think, Juju out. We could see Chase Claypool line up more in the slot. He's been a guy that I've been just waiting to break out even more than he has to date. So I think the Juju injury might just push him over the edge here. Through weeks 1 through 4, Claypool lined up in the slot about 15% of the time. And last week, once Juju left the game, he lined up out of the slot 40% of the time. And he caught both slot targets for 77 yards and a touchdown. So I think just lining up in the slot more will help elevate his floor and ceiling, honestly. So I think this is a good spot to go all in on him. I know he's going to be popular. I don't care. I think this is the game to kind of captain him. And then I'll get contrarian elsewhere in my lineup.
Yeah, Claypool. I mean, I think all the Steelers receivers are obviously in play here. Deontay Johnson is another guy. I think he's been there. So the thing with Seattle is they play a ton of zone coverage, and this is completely opposite of Denver. So last week I was on Claypool heavy. He wasn't very popular because he's coming back from injury. It looked kind of like a tough matchup. But this week I'm actually expecting everyone to get involved a little more. I think Deontay Johnson will be the top target, and so he's obviously going to be in my captain spot some. You don't really have to worry about like stacking Roethlisberger in your captain spot. He's not like a running quarterback. So I think this is a spot where you go either Deontay Johnson or you go Najee Harris, who I think he's my running back 2 on the week now with Christian McCaffrey looking questionable and missing practice. So love Najee Harris in this spot. Pittsburgh at home in a good spot for their defense against Geno Smith. I expect Pittsburgh to have the ball a ton. I know they're going to manage Najee's reps a little bit, but because he cramped up last game, but this has still been essentially he's getting Christian McCaffrey usage this year. Like he's been on the field almost every snap all season long. So this could just be a smash spot for him. I think he'll be on all the important downs. And this is actually a good spot for Pittsburgh. Sometimes they come out flat when they're expected to win, but the line has been moving steadily toward them. It opened at 3.5. It's up to 5.5 at most books. The Steelers are 23-8 against the spread, 74% when the line moves toward them as a home favorite with Roethlisberger at quarterback. So I think this is going to be a good spot for him. Expect Najee to have a lot of success against this middling Seattle D. And I think it's one thing about Pittsburgh is like their offense it's been looking shaky, but they played a bunch of teams that are pretty good on D. Like Seattle's the easiest D they've faced yet. Seattle's number 25 in DVOA. Buffalo was number 1. Cincinnati was number 7. Vegas was number 13. Denver was 10. And Green Bay was the only below average one they faced. They were 20th. But this is by far the easiest matchup. So I like all the star players for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, so you're not taking any flyers on Seattle. I'm kind of with you there. I think if anything, maybe DK Metcalf might be sneaky in the captain slot. He'd be a guy I'd be more interested in on like a main slate. If he were there, he'd be overlooked, but certainly for a 1-game showdown slate, his rostership percentage still might be pretty high. But I think if there's one guy I kind of want to attack on Seattle, it'd be DK because Even though they have Geno Smith under center, like DK is good enough. They could just force feed him, and he could be sort of a target hog and still end up with 2 touchdowns. So that's why I would still be interested in considering DK Metcalf as my captain.
Yeah, I think Metcalf and Lockett, they're like secondary options for me. But I'm focused on Pittsburgh here just because Pittsburgh has the higher touchdown upside in this game.
Yeah.
And I worry about Geno under pressure too. So I guess we could talk about like our cheat codes. I love the Steelers defense. I might even captain them in a couple of spots because they're getting pressure at the 5th highest rate in the league. Geno Smith, even though he looked good last week and, it was a primetime game, he's like, oh, he acquitted himself well. I think Lockett fell down on the interception. But overall, he was 2 of 8 for 12 yards with that pick under pressure. And pressure creates these kind of things, even though it wasn't necessarily his fault that he threw the pick. You throw the ball early, you don't get a chance to see that the receiver fell down. And that's how you throw picks. So I think it's going to be really tough for him. You go back to his last full season as a starter, and he had a sub 40 completion percentage under pressure, a passer rating below 60. So he has never been good under pressure. That's why he's not a full-time starting NFL quarterback. That's why he's a backup. So I just think it's going to be a really tough spot, even though they have the long week for him. So that's why, I expect Seattle to be in comeback mode. So I will be rostering Metcalf, will be rostering Lockett, but love the Steelers defense. And then another guy, and I'm curious to how you feel about him, but I saw that James Washington returned to practice today, and I'm captaining him. Like if he plays, I'm absolutely captaining him because remember what I always say about Seattle. Watch for that matchup at left corner. They Trey Flowers, they let him go.
Yep.
You want to know what Sidney Jones has done in his place? He's given up 100 yards and a touchdown in both games as a starter. So for the year, this is Sidney Jones' stat line for the year. 11 completions on 14 targets, 270 yards, and 2 touchdowns, no picks. That's James Washington, 56% lined up on the right compared to 24%. 24% in the slot and 20% on the left. So James Washington is going to, if he's active, he's going to run the majority of his routes at a guy that's given up 20 yards per target, essentially. Like, this is a dream matchup for Washington. So that's why I'm like, I know Claypool and Deontay are going to be the higher owned guys. So I think Claypool might even be the highest owned because you get a little bit of a discount with him compared to Deontay, compared to Najee. So like for me, I'm actually going to probably have the highest percentage of Washington, followed by, Deontay and Claypool, actually the least of the 3. I'm still rostering all of them, but I love me some James Washington this week. It's like the Robert Woods. It's the same thing.
Yep. And he was one of my cheat codes as well.
That's why I started it off. I was like, no way. I'm not letting you steal. I'm not letting you steal my Seattle versus left cornerbacks.
You knew it was coming. But obviously we have to see if he can even play. You said, he's dealing with a groin injury, but
if not, I'm playing Cody White or whoever. Like I'm playing Ray McLeod, whoever it is.
They just signed Anthony Miller to the practice squad. We can always keep an eye on him. But if the Texans decided that Anthony Miller wasn't meant to be for them, maybe we shouldn't really consider him going forward. But I love the James Washington call. He's a guy where, if Chase Claypool is lining up more in the slot, James Washington could be the main deep threat. He is the main deep threat. So, unfortunately, the way Big Ben's playing now, and with Najee Harris there, they're more balanced. James Washington projection won't be as high as it would have been, say, last year, if one of these receivers went down. But certainly Washington's a sneaky play here. Would not surprise me if he catches a deep pass, potentially for a touchdown. So perfect time to play, a guy like him, and also perfect time to take a flyer on Pat Freiermuth. This is a situation where the Steelers may opt to go more 2 tight end sets. I think it's only a matter of time until the rookie overtakes Eric Ebron. So love taking flyers on these kind of tight ends in showdown slates. And just imagine if Kyle Pitts wasn't the generational talent he was, we'd be talking about Freiermuth a lot more being the best rookie tight end in this class. He was nicknamed Baby Grunt for a reason. Go watch his college film. He's a legit receiving tight end. He flashed in preseason, so he has all the tools to, potentially have a breakout performance this week. So I'm definitely going to be rostering Freiermuth on quite a few teams this week.
Yeah, I like the Freiermuth call because, again, this is going to be a zone heavy scheme for Seattle. Tight ends tend to do better in zone coverage. only the very best tight ends are going to consistently beat man coverage, and quarterbacks are going to look for them, because you also got to have the quarterback looking for you in those spots. But against Seattle, it's just a matter of coming open, finding a spot in the zone. So I think this will be a good Freiermuth game. And, for those really, like, if you're going super like studs and scrubs here, I should mention that. Well, two things. Number one, and it goes back to the reason I like Najee. I don't know if you noticed, but Pittsburgh changed its whole blocking scheme last week. So they went completely man blocking. They didn't run any outside zone, it was all just man on a man and block and push forward. And they had an average yards before contact of 1.7, which that's pretty good for them because through the first 4 games, they had 64 carries and just 61 yards before contact. So they essentially doubled their yards before contact last week, switching to the scheme against a very good Denver D. But we know what that also meant, that they also increased the playing time of some of their heavy personnel guys, so if you're going to play some James Washington and you're multi-entering, a good hedge is to take a flyer on a guy like not only Freiermuth, but like Zach Gentry, whose snaps went up to 34%, a season high last year. He's the 3rd tight end. And even Derek Watt played a season high at the fullback and snaps last week. So like you can get like a little
Watt.
Huh?
I thought you were going to mention Ray McLeod, but you went the Zach Gentry route. We are really scraping
at
the bottom of the barrel.
Because this is one where you get, like, let's say you get down to the goal line and everyone has like Najee Harris captains or something like that, and you do a little play fake and Gentry or Watt gets that easy like walk-in touchdown. Like that could change the entire slate.
Oh yeah, I mean? Derek Watt is that guy.
Yeah,
he is the troll of this slate. The potential troll of this slate is Derek Watt for sure.
Yeah, because Nick Bellore, I don't think he's still not playing. He's not.
No, he's
not doing enough yet. For on the other side of it, and Seattle has like 4 running backs.
So when it comes to the Seattle running back situation, though, like if Chris Carson is active, I'm just avoiding the running back situation completely. It would take Chris Carson being inactive for me to consider, playing a guy like Alex Collins. That would be preferable if Chris Carson just rests another week and then we could play some Alex Collins, but I don't think we could trust either if Carson is active.
Yeah, listen, the one thing about Seattle we know they're going to do is run the ball. Like they're going to want to run the ball. So it's like, I wouldn't fade them 100% because one of them could get a touchdown. But it's not a situation I want much of, especially since Pittsburgh is 6th in early down rush success rate allowed on defense. So that's why I just think it's going to be a tough spot for Seattle. I mean, Seattle's going to come out wanting to run. They're not going to be able to. They're going to have to throw. Geno's bad under pressure. I mean, Seattle's going to, if you really think like Seattle, you want to get some contrarian lineups, you probably go with like a Collins or a Carson stack with the Seattle D, because that's really the only way Seattle's staying in this game is like their D's going to have to come up with a play, disrupt Roethlisberger and things like that. So,
I mean, Chris Carson was leaning on, touchdown production earlier in the season because he wasn't really seeing yardage. He definitely wasn't seeing any passing game usage. He had 3 catches for 3 yards over his past 3 games. So I think without Russell Wilson, like he is unplayable right now because, he's not going to get those gimme goal line touchdowns like he will with Russell Wilson under center. So that's why I'm saying I'm off. And this is coming from somebody that has Chris Carson in almost every league. So if I'm down on him, you should be too, because I feel like I'm always bullish on him. But right now, without Russell Wilson and with Chris Carson banged up, it would not surprise me if this is a 50-50 split. And like you said, in offense, we're really not trying to invest in anyway.
Yeah, it's going to be tough sledding. Like they'll give the ball to them both if active, but that's, against Pittsburgh, it's never really been like profitable to really go with running backs against them. So, and then, if Carson does not play and you're looking for kind of that like contrarian play, it's probably DJ Dallas over Homer. Dallas outsnapped Homer 14-8. He could be like kind of the hurry up back. So, that's something to also watch for. But yeah, that does it for our showdown preview. Let's get into our props on the Fantasy Flex Week 6 pod presented by PrizePicks. We'll do a quarterback, 2 running back, and 2 receiver props each. Sean, start us off. Who do you like at quarterback?
Well, I never thought I would ever be taking a Davis Mills over, but here we are. I'm going with Davis Mills over 185.5 passing yards against the Colts. This is more of a play on the number as opposed to the quarterback. Obviously last week, Mills probably had the best game of his entire career, or what will turn out to be the best game of his entire career. He threw for 312 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions against the Patriots, I might add. So he's going to come back down to earth this week, but he is playing a weak Colts secondary. So, I'm projecting closer to 210 yards here. So which isn't much, but it's, we're talking 25 yards higher than this. So I like the over, and, Tyrod Taylor could be returning next week. So that gives Davis Mills extra motivation to play well here. This could end up being his last start of his career, for all we know. So I think that gives him more incentive to have a good game here. He can lean on Brandon Cooks all he wants in this matchup. So give me the over 185.5 passing yards for Davis Mills.
Yeah, I mean, I think if he has a good game here, he probably starts the rest of the year, honestly.
Yeah, well, that's the motivating factor. Yeah, certainly if he plays well here, which I think he could against the Colts, then that really gives him that job security. Because there's no reason for them to see what they have in Tyrod Taylor. We kind of know what we have at this point, but who knows? Davis Mills might be the next rookie quarterback that Tyrod Taylor, let's turn into a future Hall of Fame quarterback based off of an injury.
Yeah, they'll just stab Tyrod in the lungs before his first game back, and Davis Mills will just get a surprise start, and it'll be history. So I have him in the high 220s as well. So I'm way over the number. This Colts secondary is just not good this year. Like we saw that clearly last week, and they're in a short week. For my quarterback prop, speaking of secondaries that aren't good, I am going with Taylor Heinicke over 259.5 passing yards against the Kansas City Chiefs. Heinicke's averaging 272 in his 4 starts. 4 out of the 5 quarterbacks to face the Chiefs have been over this number. And the one that didn't was Lamar, who also picked up 107 rushing yards and 16 carries. So, Heinicke runs a little bit, but not that much. If Lamar's not running as much as he does, he gets over the number as well, I think. And again, this Chiefs defense, they're bottom 2 in pass DVOA, and Washington's defense, especially against the pass, has been so bad that, even if Tyreek Hill doesn't play, I think Mahomes still puts up a big game throwing the football. So the total is really huge in this game. I think Kansas City is going to put up 30 plus, which means a lot of, I think Gibson's going to get his yards, but I think at some point, and probably for a good while of the portion of the game, Washington's going to play from behind. So I could see a 300-yard game easily for Taylor Heinicke. So going over 259.5 passing yards.
Yeah, obviously I'm with you here. We talked about him at length on our DFS pod. And, he's my top streaming option, my top DFS play at quarterback. And like we said, Terry McLaurin would not surprise me if he goes off here. I could see Daniel Sorensen getting turned around or, fall over and let Terry McLaurin buy for 2 80-yard touchdowns this week. Would not surprise me. So I think that just Heinicke has a super high floor and ceiling this week. So love the over here as well.
What is your beef with poor Daniel Sorensen? I feel like it was the second
just a
time.
Punching bag.
Called him out.
I mean, his PFF grade's like 28 or something ridiculous. And if you watched the game last week, I mean, he let 2 plays go right by him. So that's why I'm just saying I had a vision of Terry McLaurin being that guy this week that just flies right by Sorensen for a couple big games this week.
Yeah, he can fly by anyone. That's the thing about Terry McLaurin. Like it's, you gotta, and he's been facing some tough matchups. He already, they played the Bills and Tre'Davious already. They played Marshawn Lattimore. So he's had a couple of games, some down games, but this is not one of those spots. So I didn't go with the McLaurin over, but I would, if I'm playing Heinicke in like a 5-man PrizePicks, I would love, stacking Heinicke and McLaurin. I would have no qualms with that. So where are you going for your first running back pick?
So I'm going to stick in that Chiefs football team game, and I'm going over 46.5 rushing yards for Darrel Williams. I think he should inherit pretty much the entire Clyde Edwards-Helaire workload. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire has averaged 15 carries a game weeks 1 through 4. And that was with Darrel Williams mixing in quite a bit. I don't even expect Jerick McKinnon to get as big of a workload that Darrel Williams had. So I'm projecting Darrel Williams closer to 14, 15 carries here. And just with a average carry of 4 yards, you can pretty easily clear this number. So I'm projecting him closer to 53, 55. Something like Tyreek Hill being ruled out, they may lean on the run a little bit more. And again, we're not really asking for much here with the yardage projection of 46.5 here. So I just think Darrel Williams, he has too high of a floor to pass this up. So give me the over here.
Yeah, I'm at 13.5 for 51. So a little lower than you, but still over the number by about a carry.
It might be close. Like he probably won't rush for 100 yards, but it would not surprise me if he ends up in the 50s.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's basically those two guys, and McKinnon has not really played much as a rusher. He's been in the game in the pass game. So, I wouldn't bet the Williams over receiving necessarily. Reed can scheme up, plays obviously, but and then they just signed Derek Gore to the active roster. So, got to project him for a half carry.
Pretty much a fullback, right? I mean,
but I think he'll play halfback just because reading the tea leaves, Edwards-Helaire goes on IR. They signed Gore. They already got Michael Burton there. So, I mean, we could continue talking about fifth string running backs, but let's move on. I like the over too, is my point. I'm projecting him over. I will go for my first with your man, your guy, Nick Chubb, over 85.5 rushing yards. Again, I told you his yards per carry is rising in my model. And just looking at what's going on in this Cleveland, Arizona game, and I could be dead wrong on this, but I like Cleveland in this spot. I just think what I'm seeing from Arizona here, I'm a little concerned. For one, Kyler Murray has like this mysterious shoulder injury. He could be fine, but remember what happened last year when he had a mysterious shoulder injury. We saw it coming. The play dropped off just like it did last week against San Francisco, and he went through a couple of games of a rough patch here. So I like Cleveland in this spot, and because of that, I like Chubb. And then you have these what it looks like to be 15 plus mile per hour winds in this game. That favors the run game. We've seen Cleveland play a couple of these wind games last year. And they barely threw the football because they barely throw the football as it is. And you have Arizona. I mean, talk about 5 yards per carry. Arizona's allowing 5.1 yards per carry to running backs. So all in on a smash spot here for Nick Chubb, who's gone over this number in 3 of his 5 so far.
Obviously, I'm in agreement here. Whenever you're on the over on Nick Chubb, I'm interested. And like I said on Monday or Tuesday, my yards per carry projection for him this week was 5.3. I actually had to adjust it over the past couple of days. It's actually up to 5.35. So I like it even more. And it's surprising to see if you look at next gen stats, he's only seen a stack box 20% of the time this year, which doesn't make any sense to me. I would just think that whenever he's on the field, you'd stack the box. So that's something to keep an eye on why that is. But he's benefiting a ton. His yards per carry is 5.8 this year. Just maximum efficiency all around with him. So if Kareem Hunt is banged up or limited anyway, he's just going to sail over this number. So give me the over here as well.
Yeah, I think it's just a product with the stack boxes, more of the schemes they face. I know they face the Chiefs, who like to play 2 safeties deep. They played the Chargers, who like to play 2 safeties deep. That's probably more to do with that than anything else. But
typically he's going to see 30 to 35%, I would say, stack boxes. So wouldn't surprise me if his yards per carry goes down from 5.8, but not too much.
Yeah, I mean, we are seeing, what it is? We're just seeing that resurgence of the 2 deep coverages now. They played Houston. That's all cover 2. Yeah. So they played like 3 of the biggest cover 2 teams. So, it will tick down a little. But again, Arizona has been giving up over 5 yards of carry. So either way, stack the box or not, Chubb can run right through you. Who you got for your second running back prop?
So I'm going with another Darrell prop, and that's Darrell Henderson under 2.5 receptions against the Giants. Now this line is probably in line with what we typically expect from Darrell Henderson, but I think this game script where the Rams are 10-point favorites will make it more likely we see Darrell Henderson get maybe like 20 carries this game, and he probably won't see as much work in the passing game. And 6 of his targets this season have come when the Rams are trailing by 3 or more points, and that's just on 49 dropbacks on the season. Whereas he's only seen 5 targets when they're leading by 3 or more, and that's on 67 dropback. So we've seen, when the Rams have a lead, they don't really increase Henderson's usage in the passing game. It actually goes down. So I just think based on this game script, I'm projecting him closer to 2 receptions. And as always, in these markets, especially a 2.5 reception prop, a half reception is massive. So love the under here.
Yeah, I'm at 2.4, so I'm right under. But again, the median for that is still going to be 2. It's not going to be 3.
Yeah.
So
yep.
Yeah, I'm under 2. And last week Henderson got 61% of the routes to Michel's 39%. There was a lot of routes for running backs in that game. They essentially didn't block at all. Usually, you'll see them block about 15% of the time. So I have Henderson's routes, in the high 50s, which it's not a good scenario for him to get to 3 receptions essentially, because the Rams like to throw it downfield. They're like, if we can get it to Kupp and Woods and Jefferson and Jackson and Higbee, we don't need to throw the back, whether he's running a route or not. So yeah, I think he goes over this definitely like 55-60. I mean, under this 55-60% of the time. All right. For my second running back prop, I'm going Aaron Jones. Speaking of running backs in the pass game, Aaron Jones is under 28.5 receiving yards. This number just struck me as a little high. I know we talked about earlier in the week, you mentioned that Matt LaFleur wants to get A.J. Dillon more involved. Aaron Jones' median this season is only 14 of receiving yards. He's had 26 receiving yards or less in 12 of his 19 games since the start of last season. That's 63%. And remember, especially, so I like it down to even 26.5. But remember, on PrizePicks, if you can get to 28.5, you're essentially getting it at even money there. So really like it there. Chicago is allowing the 8th fewest schedule adjusted receiving yards per game to opposing running backs, according to Football Outsiders, just 34 adjusted yards to backs out of the backfield.
Yeah, obviously I like this prop as well. You actually stole it from me in our outline.
He tried to steal it from me. I had our outline filled out like last night at by like 8 p.m. You pulled the me and decided not to look at it.
Yeah, the early bird got the Aaron Jones underworm in this case. So I'm in agreement. And even like if you watched the game last week, the very first play of the game, they had Kylan Hill lined up a running back and they threw a design screen pass for him. And then we didn't see from him again, which is bizarre. But I could see him as the season goes on being more involved in the passing game as well. I think Aaron Jones, he's still a top 10 running back this week in fantasy. He's going to dominate the rush attempts this week. But certainly when it comes to receiving yards, he's seen a much lower floor week to week. So yeah, 28.5 is way too high. I'd project this closer to like 23.5. So quite a bit of value here as well.
Yeah. I'm in the low 20s for him as well.
Yeah.
Don't expect him to get to 4 catches either for what that's worth. Where are you going for your first receiving prop?
I'm going with Ceedee Lamb to go under 75.5 receiving yards. They play the Patriots this week. And, as we always talk about, Bill Belichick always does a really good job of trying to take away the opposing team's best player. I think in this matchup, that is Ceedee Lamb. And, if you've been watching some of the Cowboys games lately, Amari Cooper is definitely less than 100%. He's been more of a decoy lately. So I think Bill Belichick can see that. And he knows that he has to stop Ceedee Lamb at all costs. And, I wouldn't be surprised if they lean on Zeke and Pollard and Dalton Schultz again this week. It's been working well for them. So it could come at the expense of Ceedee Lamb having a monster game. Obviously, Ceedee Lamb is one of the best receivers in the game, but I'm projecting him, closer to 67.5 yards for his median this week. So I like the under here.
Yeah, I have it under 65. This is not a big passing game for Dak. I haven't projected only about 270. So even though Davis Mills went off, if you watch that game against the Patriots with Davis Mills, he just had a couple of crazy throws that the receiver, like that Chris Moore play looked like the Stephon Diggs walk-off. Like that, it was nuts. Like he just caught it at the sideline and just bounced.
That had to be infuriating. You had the under like 28.5, right? Like
I had the under for the game. Yeah.
No, I know.
Whatever.
I was joking. 39.5. So yeah. And I still liked it, but yeah, that was infuriating just to see Davis Mills have the best game of his career last week. Like that's going to go down as his best game of all time.
You keep saying that, and I don't. Maybe it's because I have no respect for the Colts, but I could see him lighting up the Colts this week. I might have to get some money line.
I don't think he'll beat last week's game, and I'm not expecting Davis Mills to be NFL starter for too much longer. That's going into my, my quote there.
I mean, I know I was at the Dodger game during the last half of Monday Night Football, but I saw a certain quarterback that people used to think couldn't throw just light up the Colts for about 400 yards in 15 minutes. So I wouldn't put it past them, is what I'm saying. So, like, don't write them off yet. But no, yeah, I have this projected in the mid low 60s for Ceedee Lamb. This is, again, just because, same thing for Cooper, just not expecting a huge passing day for Dallas. And this is also one of those trap spots, like 5-0 team, you know, going to Foxborough against a team everyone thinks they should beat. The line is kind of chilling around 3.5. You know, it's one of those trap game spots where I could see a little bit of a clunker from Dallas here. For my first receiver prop, if you're going to go with a stud receiver under, I'll match you with DJ Moore under 82.5 receiving yards. He's actually still, even with the great season he's having, he's still under this number in 3 out of his 5 games this year. Minnesota is allowing, tied for the 3rd fewest schedule adjusted targets and 8th fewest schedule adjusted yards per game to opposing number 1 receivers, just 5.9 targets for 54 yards, schedule adjusted for number 1 wide receivers. That scheme is starting to come together for Mike Zimmer a little bit. And I just think this number is too high because look at Sam Darnold, and, you know, he started off with some cake matchups and then they had an extended garbage time against the Dallas Cowboys, but Minnesota is number 2 in pressure rate this year. And Darnold has been really bad under pressure. He 1 touchdown to 4 picks. The yards per attempt is down. The rating is down. And he also has taken 13 sacks on 77 dropbacks under pressure. So I just think it's going to be a tough game for Darnold. And I think he's going to be a little bit gun shy too, because, you know, 5 interceptions the last couple of weeks. I just don't know if he's going to get the ball out high volume to where this is going to be like a DJ Moore blow up spot. So playing on the number here, obviously DJ Moore still a top 10 fantasy receiver, but this is one of those weeks where I feel like decent, you know, kind of going underweight on him in terms of DFS rostership, and I'm going under on the prop at 82.5.
Yeah, I'm projecting this closer to 79.5. It's always hard going against DJ Moore just based on how good he is, but you know, last week he was being shadowed by Darius Slay the entire game, I believe. But I think going forward, we should expect more from Robbie Anderson. I know we keep saying, you know, he's going to break out soon. He is seeing the targets. He's seeing the air yards. So him having a blow up game here would certainly negatively correlate with Moore's prop. I even think Terrence Marshall, I keep saying it, he's going to break out soon. So I think once those 2 guys step up, I think we're going to be lowering our projections for DJ Moore going forward. So I like kind of getting ahead of that trend here, but he's tough to go against. I agree with like DJ Moore and Ceedee Lamb. It seems like we're being risky here, but it's about the number. We're projecting him, you know, to go under this more times than not. So it's more about going against the number than the player in these cases.
Yeah, I mean, when he's already done it 3 out of 5 times under, it's, you know, and he's had a great season. So, you know, that's
where Darnold has thrown for over 300 yards 3 times in 5 games, which, you know, we can't bank on going forward. I don't think anyway.
I was trying to bank on it last week, and then that didn't work out.
How about Christian McCaffrey potentially being out? Would that possibly bump up your projection for more, or is this kind of already baked in?
No, this is already baked in. I actually, you know, like this is like I think Darnold is just going to struggle a little more with McCaffrey out, period. But with Moore, it's just kind of, you know, once you're getting into the 80s, like that's just a tough prop. That's even you've mentioned this, even Tyreek Hill. That's a tough prop. You know, like you've played that out 100 times, 1,000 times. It's
well, Tyreek Hill's different. He either puts up, you know, 40 yards or 190. Yeah. Whereas DJ Moore is a little bit more consistent. But yeah, and anything over 80 is pretty hard for even elite receivers to maintain as a median anyway.
Absolutely. All right, let's close it up. Who is your second receiving prop for week 6?
So my second prop is TJ Hockenson under 42.5 receiving yards against the Bengals. We already talked about this during our DFS pod, but this seems like 7 to 8 yards too high. Defenses have been putting more resources into stopping Hockenson. You know, he's probably their best weapon right now, outside of DeAndre Swift, obviously. But Hawkinson's also been playing through a knee injury, so he's less than 100%. So it's been easier for teams to slow him down. And Goff has been leaning on rookie Amon-Ra St. Brown a lot more the past couple of games. I could see that trend continuing. Certainly, he loves dumping it off to DeAndre Swift and even Jamal Williams. So Even though I'm projecting Hockenson to go under this by quite a bit, he's still my tight end 4 this week. And that has to do with, Kyle Pitts and George Kittle is on IR and dealing with bye week. So it's a bit thin at tight end. So Hawkins still my tight end 4, but this is still too high of a projection for him right now. His median would be closer to about 44.5 yards this week.
Yeah, I have him in the high 40s, so I have him like just under this by a hair. I think this is a spot the Lions might actually be frisky here. So, but I agree. I think, the number is still a little bit high. Like even my mean projection for Hockenson is still slightly under the 52.5. So I like the number. I'm sure it'll be bet down a little bit, and I wouldn't be surprised if it closes under 50 this week. All right, for my final receiving prop, I'm going with Laviska Shenault under 52.5 receiving yards. He's been under this in 3 out of 5 games this year, and he's only been over this in 5 of his 19 career games. Now, he didn't always have this big of a role, but that's kind of the point. His role hasn't been as consistent as we thought, especially with DJ Chark out. Laviska Shenault's routes run per dropback actually hit a season low last week. So he was between 79 and 81% each of the first 4 weeks. Last week, 61%. Now, maybe if there was like some weird things going on with the game script, you'd say, okay, but Jamal Agnew, yes, that Jamal Agnew, the former cornerback, / return specialist, played more snaps, 68% on pass plays than did Shenault. And then Tavon Austin, who played 75% 2 weeks ago, still played 50%. So Shenault was barely holding off Tavon Austin for the wide receiver 4 role last week. Now, could he jump back up? I'm guessing he will. I still have him projected closer to his season average, which is 76% of routes run per dropback. But that still leaves him short of this number because Miami, outside of that, they came into that Tampa Bay game. I think they were number 2 in early down success rate against the pass on defense. Tampa Bay is going to skew all of your defensive statistics. So I'm not holding it against them that, they gave up infinite amount of yards and touchdowns to all the Tampa receivers. I still don't think we can trust Shenault in this spot. So I have this median about, 7-8 yards lower. I have him closer to 45 for a median than this number, which is 52.5.
Yeah, same here. And this is more of a bet against Urban Meyer than it is against Shenault, because like you said, for some bizarre reason, they're using these wannabe Percy Harvin type players like Tavon Austin and Jamal Agnew when they already have like the best version of a Percy Harvin type prospect in Laviska Shenault. So maybe Urban Meyer, we've said he usually gets things wrong and then fixes it later on. Maybe he does figure out that Shenault should be playing over 90% of the time every week. But right now he is certainly a fade given his underlying usage. So I'm with you here. I'm projecting the median. Yeah. Closer to 44.5, 45.5 receiving yards until we see otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, it also probably has something to do. Trevor Lawrence just hasn't been able to connect with him. Just a catch rate of 64.5 compared to 73.4 last year. Shenault being asked to run routes a little further downfield. Not much. The ADOT went from 6.2 to 7. So it's not like a major increase in the downfield work, but it just seems like Trevor Lawrence and him aren't on the same page yet.
Yeah, so those ancillary receivers are obviously eating into it, but even Dan Arnold, like especially in the area of the field, just how much he played and how much he was targeted, that's certainly leading into this as well. So that's something I do think is going to be sticky. I think Dan Arnold will absolutely be the number 2, number 3 target going forward in this offense. So that might be the real reason why we're probably low on Shenault this week.
Yeah, I mean, can't go wrong being low on Jaguars, not named James Robinson.
Yeah.
That's pretty much how I'm looking at this point.
Yeah.
But all right, to recap, for week 6, Sean has Davis Mills over 185.5 passing yards. Darrel Williams over 46.5 rushing yards. Darrell Henderson under 2.5 receptions. Ceedee Lamb under 75.5 receiving yards. And TJ Hockenson under 52.5 receiving yards. I'm going Taylor Heinicke over 259.5 passing yards. Nick Chubb over 85.5 rushing. Aaron Jones under 28.5 receiving. DJ Moore under 82.5 receiving. And Laviska Shenault Jr. under 52.5 receiving. That is going to do it for our week 6 Fantasy Flex Props Pod presented by PrizePicks. Make sure you follow Sean Koerner on Twitter at @_oddsmaker and me on Twitter at Chris Raybon. You can find us at those same handles in the Action Network app. Be sure to check out actionnetwork.com or the app for our fantasy rankings and projections, and FantasyLabs.com for our DFS tools and content. Until next week, let's get this shmoney.